in a surprise move this week, the Denver City Council voted to not renew the contracts with the GEO Group and Core Civic, private firms managing halfway houses in Denver. The companies have come under criticism for the management of ICE Detention Centers, including one in Aurora, and now the council is faced with the challenge of replacing the services the companies provided to over 500 individuals in Denver. Penn, this was a surprise move because it looked like these contracts were just going to get, I don't want to say rubber stamped, but it did not look like there was going to be a challenge. It changed during the meeting and from the efforts of Councilwoman Cita Baca. Are we looking at a new council with a lot of other new tricks up their sleeve like this?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that was clear during the election cycle is that people in Denver wanted change on a number of different levels. And Candace Cita Baca is one of the new council people that reflects that changed approach, that changed attitude that people want to see with regard to their city government. I think it's interesting that this is where she sort of took her early stand and exerted her influence with city council to change something that people thought was a fait accompli. Now, there's a flip side to this. You wonder what happens to the people who are in these facilities who now may end up going to jail or losing jobs or other things because the contracts are canceled. I've been told that what this really does is it stops the renewal, but that the city will immediately begin negotiating the contracts with the provider under different terms and conditions to address some of the issues that the community has put forward. But I think it's an interesting display of strength, and it shows that there may be a new council majority forming that's going to impact policy in the future.
Lynn, are we about to learn a lot more about halfway houses and zoning codes and a lot of other details in Denver that we may not have understood before?
Well, I think those issues have always played out. I covered shootings where, the guy in the halfway house got out and killed somebody and that sort of thing. I think what this speaks to actually is the chief of staff for this councilwoman, Lisa, who has contracts, who knows the criminal justice. And I think that's her exerting her influence. I was told that she had told people, I know this isn't going to pass, and then it passed. You do worry about the 500 people that are there. I mean, these contracts expired at the beginning of the month, and they were just kind of working and doing them. So I'm sure that they'll do something for these 500 people. But it's not often that the Denver City Council takes a vote and said, we're going to do something that could harm 500 people trying to get their life back.
You're speaking of Lisa Calderon,
yes.
Chief of Staff of Councilwoman Cita Baca. Patty Westford has a great piece on this. What are some of the details we need to know?
Well, beyond the details, which is, it was a surprise to everyone pretty much that this did pass. Clearly, the recent news about GEO and the protests out at the immigration detention facility in Aurora, which is run by GEO, really affected this vote too. But it's not just the 500 people that may not have a place to be soon, it's the ones coming in the pipeline. Already, the way prisoners who have served their time and then are released is like writing them a ticket to recidivism. They don't get training. The halfway house is their best bet if it's a well-run halfway house. And so we need a lot more oversight of that. We need to make sure if we're going to invest in these prisoners coming out and getting back into society, let's make sure it works.
David, are we seeing a changing face of the City Council?
Yes, and as Michael Dukakis, the Democratic presidential nominee, said, it's not about ideology, it's about competence, and a growing lack of that on the part of the Denver City Council. At least based on the news coverage of this decision, there was no real significant problems or criticism of how these companies are operating their halfway houses for the city of Denver and their contract. Rather, the companies were punished for virtue signaling purposes by open border advocates because they also contract with the federal government on other facilities. As Mayor Hancock and Patty have said, there's really no substitute for having halfway houses other than these facilities. And in fact, the City Council's decision is already leading to more people being stuck in jail who haven't finished their sentence, but they could be let out into a halfway house, according to the Sheriff's Office and the People Management. But they can't be now because of the Denver City Council. So the City Council has done its part to aggravate the problem of mass incarceration.